The story begins with our protagonist brimming with excitement at the prospect of observing predators at the zoo, all because her Sunbi took the day off. She couldn't help but marvel at the majestic beauty of these creatures. Despite her job being temporary, she felt grateful for the opportunity. However, her joy was short-lived as she suddenly found herself in a strange place that had nothing to do with the zoo. Panic set in when she realized her phone was missing. But that wasn't the only shock she had to endure, for upon closer inspection, she discovered she had a beak and feathers. She had transformed into a crow. The protagonist couldn't believe it. Was this some kind of reincarnation? And if so, why a crow and not a princess like in the fantasy romance novels she loved? And why not a predator? She couldn't help feeling like an unlucky bird. To make matters worse, she found herself lying in a hospital bed with a doctor informing her that she had been possessed. When she tried to speak, she could only squawk like a crow. The biggest worry for our protagonist was how to survive as a crow, a bird that feeds on insects, bugs, and other rotting animal corpses. She briefly contemplated pecking the eyes out of the god who had made her a crow, but relief came when she realized she could eat dry nuts if only she could find them. With this newfound optimism, she spread her wings and took to the sky, feeling free for the first time. She wondered if all birds had this sensation. As she flew, she heard some voices and wondered if they might be humans. She decided to search for someone to adopt her as their pet instead of starving. But as she attempted to land, she realized with horror that they were monsters, orcs of the fantasy variety. Regretting her decision, she flew away, realizing that she was no longer in Korea or any part of Earth she knew. She had landed in a fantasy world. She wondered which medium of entertainment this world was from, a manhwa, a novel, or a game. To her relief, she could understand the language of this world. As she listened in on the orcs' conversation, she learned that they were seeking revenge on a human. She knew there must be a skilled human nearby since the orcs were hunting for him. As she searched for him, she stumbled upon a human lying injured on the ground, regretting his decision to fight the orcs. He mentioned a name, Llewellyn, which sounded familiar to the protagonist. She realized that the injured man was the human the orcs were seeking revenge on. She knew she had to warn him about the orcs, hoping to gain his trust and possibly make him interested in her. But as she pondered her next move, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she had seen this character somewhere before. In the next scene, the crow's cawing pierces through the hero's slumber, jolting him awake. He groggily looks at the crow, and a thought crosses his mind. Could the crow be waiting for him to die so it could feast on his corpse? After all, crows are known as scavengers, often seen on battlefields and cemeteries, symbolizing death itself. The hero feels a sense of unease, wanting to shoo away the bird, but knowing that making a loud noise might attract the orcs, who are hot on his trail. He waits in quiet desperation, hoping for help to arrive. The crow caws again, aggravating the hero, but then unexpectedly, it takes flight and disappears. The orcs, who had been observing the crow's behavior, suspect that there may be a dead body nearby, and decide to follow the bird in search of the hero. To the hero's surprise, he realizes that the crow wasn't waiting for him to die. Instead, it was trying to help him. The orcs pursue the crow, and the bird leads them far away from the hero, to a cliff. The orcs hesitate, considering it foolish to follow the crow any further, and assume that the hero must have perished. The crow, meanwhile, searches for the hero and finds bloodstains on the ground. It deduces that the hero must be bleeding heavily, leaving clear traces of his whereabouts. The crow decides to find an herb to reduce the bleeding, relying on its instincts to distinguish between edible and inedible plants. As the hero tends to his wounds near a lake, washing away the blood to eliminate his scent, he ponders the irony of being saved by a bird associated with death. He realizes that without the crow's help, he would have faced the orcs with his injuries and likely perished. However, he knows he can't rely solely on luck to survive. He wonders how the crow could be so knowledgeable, suspecting it may be a familiar, a hybrid, or even a polymorph dragon. Yet, none of these options seem plausible based on what he knows. The crow communicates with the hero, directing him to eat a fruit lying on the ground. The hero is amazed that the crow seems to understand him, and as he tastes the sweet fruit, he is filled with a moment of profound gratitude that he will never forget. And so, their unusual cohabitation continued. The crow diligently searched for medicinal herbs and fruits for the hero, always on the lookout for danger and warning him of nearby threats. In return, the hero provided food for them to eat, sparing Rionel from having to eat insects. They relied on each other, forming a mutual bond of support. The hero then gives her a beautiful name, Rionel. At first, the hero was guarded around Rionel, but over time, his expression softened as he looked at her. An unfamiliar feeling began to stir in Rionel's heart. She couldn't help but think that if being handsome was a crime, the hero might be sentenced to life imprisonment. The hero started patting her head, and she enjoyed the attention. For the first time, Rionel felt cared for by someone, unlike others who had tricked or betrayed him. It was a refreshing change for the hero as well, and he found himself wishing to be with Rionel rather than returning to the Imperial Palace. But the reality of their situation soon dawned on the hero. He couldn't continue to live like this. He remembered the knights who sacrificed their lives for him and the people suffering under Llewellyn's tyranny. He had to go back to the palace. However, he knew that if he returned without proper proof of his identity, Llewellyn would declare him dead or missing and take his place. He needed to awaken his power, the ability to shapeshift into a wolf, which was the true mark of his royal lineage. As Rionelle searched for medicinal herbs for her prince, she stumbled upon something shiny. Her crow instincts kicked in, and she couldn't resist playing with the jewel, but she felt ashamed as she reminded herself that she was a human, not just a crow. However, upon closer inspection, she realized that it was not a jewel but a fruit called Croban Rock, known for awakening powers in characters, much like an enhancement item in video games. Rionelle's memories flooded back as she realized that she had played a similar game 3 years ago, where she had saved a handsome man, the crown prince of the Balfric Empire, who was now in front of her. Rionelle's heart raced with hope as she picked up the Croban Rock and took it to the prince, hoping it would also help her return to her original world. The prince chuckled at her actions, thinking she might be a dragon or a prophet, as Rionelle secretly hoped for his attention. Despite knowing the potential dangers, the prince made up his mind to eat the fruit, hoping it would free him from his desperate situation. He looked at Rionelle and told her to live her life freely, even if he didn't survive. A golden aura enveloped the prince as he ate the Croban fruit, fully awakening his powers. Rionelle, perched on a rock, admired the beauty of the prince, though her thoughts took a rather naughty turn as she imagined him in a fatal and sexy state. Meanwhile, the prince was overwhelmed by the power coursing through him in his awakened state. Tension rose as a pack of wolf-like beasts were drawn to the prince's power, and Rionelle sprang into action, spawking and distracting them to keep them away from her prince. In a show of pure heart towards Rionelle, the prince risked his life, fully unleashing his awakened powers, while she valiantly kept the wolf beasts at bay. The stakes were high, but Rionelle was willing to risk it all for her prince. In this thrilling scene, Prince's powers are awakened by a dazzling golden lightning bolt that strikes from his aura, causing him excruciating pain. Rionelle explains that all animals in the world created by God follow them except for the wolves, who tried to create their own groups to attain the power of God. But after fully awakening his shape-shifting powers, Prince transforms into a wolf and fearlessly attacks a herd of monsters. Sadly, Rionelle gets injured in the process of saving her prince, which prompts him to vow to sleep less if it means protecting her. Prince holds Rionelle tightly in his arms, overwhelmed with emotion as he realizes that she had risked her life to save him. Determined to heal Rionelle's injuries, Prince sets off into the forest in search of herbs, leaving her in the care of a kind lady who miraculously heals her wounds. When Rionelle wakes up and sees the stranger tending to her, she panics and calls out for Prince. But Prince arrives soon after and assures Rionelle that she is safe in the Mansion of Knights. She rests in his arms, feeling secure and grateful for his protection. Rionelle begins to realize that she has been transported to a fantasy world filled with magic and wizards. As the priest takes his leave, Prince tightly hugs Rionelle and thanks God for saving her life. Overcome with shyness and confusion, Rionelle struggles to express her love for the handsome prince. She even imagines him marrying another woman and feels angry and jealous at the thought. However, when a royal knight named Galinos arrives to thank and honor Prince for his bravery, Rionelle becomes suspicious of his motives. Galinos falls to his knees and begs for forgiveness, believing himself to be a sinner who abandoned Prince when he needed him most. Rionelle can't believe that such a handsome man would sacrifice himself for their prince and feels a surge of emotions that she can't quite put into words. As the story unfolds, Rionelle begins to realize that her feelings for Prince run deeper than she ever imagined. Will she be able to express her love for him, or will she be doomed to live as a mere pet in his shadow? Only time will tell in this magical tale of adventure and love. So that's it for this recap, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to comment crow down below to let me know your curiosity for the next parts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when the next recap drops. See you in the next one.